Imagine for a moment you're Porsche and your Porsche going electric. How to tackle that one? Well, you're taking no risks, so you start with the Taycan. Effectively, it's a four-door 911 with the flat six removed and a couple of electric motors put in. It drives really nicely, it feels like a Porsche, and it goes down a storm. Next up, the electric Macan, your second bestseller, so kind of a big deal. But again, it feels really good, it feels really Porsche, it feels true to the brand. And in the UK, where the two models are alongside each other, the EV accounts for 70% of sales. And then 2026 will finally see the electric Cayman and Boxster. The electric 911 is still some way off. So where does that leave the next exciting chapter in the Porsche electrification story? Well, next up is this, the Cayenne Electric, and it's kind of a big deal. The Cayenne has been absolutely fundamental to Porsche's modern success story and accounts for fully a third of sales globally. So when this car goes on sale next year, that will mean you can get the older shape car, which will be heavily updated as a plug-in hybrid or a petrol-powered vehicle, and then you'll be able to get this, the pure electric Cayenne. So months ahead of its official unveiling and nearly a year before you'll see this car on UK roads, we've gate-crashed a prototype drive opportunity to get behind the wheel on-road and off-road. And we'll be driving a couple of different versions. So we've got a range-topping turbo, we've got the entry-level car, and then a sort of mid-tier S to really understand what this car's all about. So, what do we know about this car? Well, we're finding out more and more in terms of detail all the time, but the great thing about gate-crashing a prototype drive is spending time with engineers. And if these guys are faking it, if they're going electric against their will, then they're doing a great job of pulling the wool over my eyes, because the enthusiasm is clear to see for this car and what it can do. And that's just as well because the targets are lofty. It's basically more of everything. More comfort, more space, more day-to-day practicality, and more performance. So let's have a good look around it. So the platform in the Cayenne Electric is Porsche Premium Electric, PPE, which is the same as the Macan, but if you put it to the engineers behind this thing that they share the same platform, well, they brittle slightly. There's so many changes that in their terminology, it's a completely different platform. And actually this one is Porsche owned, so if anybody else within the VW group wants to come use it, they're gonna have to talk to Porsche and pay Porsche. And what does that get you? Well, it gets you a whacking great battery. So 100 kilowatt hours gross in the Macan, 113 kilowatt hours gross here in the Cayenne Electric. And that's good for a WLTP at least range of 373 miles. That battery is also cooled from both sides, so top and bottom. And that means good charging on a charger, so up to 400 kilowatts on a charger, but also up to 600 kilowatts regen. I mean, that's only going to be in brief spurts, but that's a hell of a lot of regen. And that's because the car can cope with the heat. And then, yeah, charging power up to 400 kilowatts, so that's 10 to 80% state of charge in around 16 minutes if you can find a pokey enough charger. In terms of e-motor technology, there's a number of motors deployed in the Cayenne Electric to give the different power levels. So some of them are shared with the Macan Electric, but a couple are bespoke to the Cayenne Electric. They're a new generation of Porsche electric motor. And crucially, they've got direct oil cooling to the stator, which is the technology we saw on like the Mission R race car. And that's good for power, but it's also great for sustained performance. So letting you repeat hard acceleration again and again without having to derate the motor. And in terms of power, well, there is a lot. There's a lot of performance generally with the Cayenne Electric. So flagship turbo is over 1,000 horsepower, so 0 to 62 in under 3 seconds, 0 to 124 in under 10. And even the entry-level car is going to be under 5 seconds, 0 to 62. All of them are quick. We should probably talk about weight. So while weight has increased with the Cayenne Electric, it's maybe not by as much as you'd think. We're looking at about 2.65, 2.7 tons for a fully loaded turbo and about 2.5 tons for an entry-level car. So it's heavy, but that's maybe not as bad as we thought given the battery alone is 600 kilos. And to make it feel relatively light and compact on the road, Porsche's thrown everything it can at it. So we've got ceramic brakes, we've promised a classically direct steering feel on the front axle, we've got optional rear wheel steering, and we've also got optional active ride control, which is the system we first saw on the Panamera and Taycan. And that really comes into its own on the Cayenne, given the bandwidth, given you've got to go from fast road to off-road use. We've also got air suspension as standard and adaptive damping as standard. The Cayenne Electric is aiming to be a comfier, more day-to-day practical car than the petrol or plug-in hybrid version, so it's a slightly different shape. It's a longer and wider car, but it sits slightly lower, which helps with the drag coefficient. Interior space is up, particularly in the back. There's loads of rear legroom. You've got a much bigger boot, and you've got a 90-litre frunk for the first time too. And there's also loads of really cool, we're promised, luxury tech in the cabin, but all of that's to be revealed later, so for now we'll just have to wait. So we're in the Cayenne Electric tackling some off-road stuff. Now, will anybody actually do this? Well, it's a question as old as time itself, isn't it? But let's face it, having more capability in the car than you're ever likely to need has never been a bad thing. You know, just because a GT3 RS is better around the circuit than I am doesn't mean I don't want one. So yeah, we're in a kind of S version here. So we've got obviously the air suspension, which comes as standard, and we're in the right mode. So we've cranked it right up in off-road 2, and we're in the rocks mode, which gives you the most ground clearance on that air suspension. So lifted right up. And then what really makes the difference off-road with the Cayenne Electric is that torque modulation, that instant access you've got to so much forward momentum exactly when you want it. And without the sort of gears and the pause in the transmission that might cause you hiccups. So it just makes these really, really steep climbs so easy. I can just balance it on the point of just enough forward momentum and then add a little bit more power and torque whenever I need to. So the S is, we think, around about 550 horsepower. Right now, that's all I really need. We've also got on the infotainment screen here all those handy camera views, so a sort of top-down bird's eye view to see just how close we're getting to the scenery. Nearly got stuck there, but we're just going to make it over. And then you can really zoom in to have a look at the wheels and check you're not going to smash them to bits against a rock. So yeah, will anyone ever do it? Hard to say, but if you need to, it really can. Okay, so here we are. You join me on the road in the Cayenne Electric, and as I hope you can tell, it's a pretty serene, comfortable and quiet place to be. So for me, one of the standout attributes of this thing so far has been just the luxuriousness of the ride quality. This setup, the air suspension coupled with the 2-valve dampers is just so, yeah, the compliance is off the scale. So you've got a number of drive modes on the suspension. You can adjust the suspension independent of the drive mode as well, but just for the lols, I was running it in the track damping setting on some really rough corrugated concrete earlier. Yeah, you can feel the ripples if you're in track, which is as stiff as it goes, but it's all really nicely controlled. And if you wind it back to normal or comfort, well, I don't think there are many more comfortable long distance cars than this thing. But yeah, being a Porsche, of course, you're only ever a couple of twists on the drive mode controller away from something quite capable of hustling with the best of them. And that, yeah, I guess it's the mark of a chassis, isn't it? When you can make over 1,000 horsepower feel, well, not like too much power. Everything else somehow can kind of cope with it, even when like then there's diesel all over the roads. And it's not an intimidating machine to drive. I mean, some of that power has been left out of the throttle pedal and put in the overboost function. And then there's a little bit more in launch control as well. So yes, you're still working with over 900 horsepower on the pedal travel alone, but it's a long travel pedal and you always know what you're asking for, helped by that artificial noise. And this went right to the top. So even at board level, this was being considered whether or not to go for this kind of quasi V8 soundtrack as you drive. And well, I'm told a lot of engineers, even within Porsche, were pretty skeptical until they tried it. And that's the thing, isn't it? I guess it's the same with the artificial gear shifts in the Ioniq 5N. They sound daft until you try it, and then suddenly you're a believer. And same here, and it does help. It helps you kind of key into otherwise what might be quite a sort of, well, an antiseptic noise that doesn't help you understand how much power you're asking for. There's a real sort of sonic gauge there for the amount of power and torque you're deploying at any one time. And luckily, the brakes and front end can cope with it all. Yeah, the way this thing rotates into bends is pretty impressive. And this is a turbo without the active ride control, so we're using good old-fashioned anti-roll bars here. But we've driven both, and to be honest, there's not much in it. There's obviously a bit of more outright control with them, like you don't feel quite that natural roll with just getting through these twisties, but in a way I think I prefer it without. I think there's something more, I don't know, authentic and organic about the way the car moves without the active ride control system. It just feels that little bit more, I don't know, approachable and easy to get your head around. And the brakes do an astonishing job. There is obviously quite a bit of weight, and when you tuck into the performance, quite a bit of momentum to deal with, but they've always got a bit of delicacy you want in the pedal travel, but also the sheer power to give you the confidence to press on and use everything that this thing's got. So yeah, if this is what you do with your Cayenne, and fair play if that's its regular usage, then you will not be disappointed with the Cayenne Electric. Over 900 horsepower just in the throttle pedal travel alone, but sometimes you just want a bit more than that. So you go launch control, and then you've got everything. You've got all of that extra power in the push to pass and all of the extra power in launch control for the full north of 1,000 horsepower experience. So here it is. Oh. I think my face was temporarily around the back of my head then. That was certainly pretty ballistic. critical to Porsche's good health, the new Cayenne really matters. Porsche knows this, and so too does the team behind it. The pressure is on. And you might think that team would be more than a little nervous, but having spent the day with them, we've seen no signs of that. And driving the car, you begin to understand why. Hugely impressive, even as a prototype. It feels like it'll better the existing Cayenne in most areas, while also providing way more space and refinement. What's more, the Cayenne Electric somehow feels like a labour of love, like the work of a bunch of individuals who, despite their passion for and history with the combustion engine, have wholeheartedly embraced all electric and all it can bring to the party. And whether you're crawling rocks, flying down motorways or bashing back roads, with the Cayenne Electric it turns out that's quite the party.